Good evening and welcome to National Broadcasting News India tonight's news update. Here are the top stories. Trump imposes fresh tariffs before deadline. Former US President Donald Trump announced new tariffs including 50% on copper, 15% on South Korean imports. Warnings to Canada over recognition of Palestine. These were introduced just ahead of the August 1st deadline, causing global market tension. US dollar records first monthly gain in 2025. The dollar strengthened in July, buoyed by strong US data and diminishing expectations of a Fed rate cut. US EU trade deal calms market nerves. A new US EU tariff pact featuring a 15% duty and $600 billion investment flow stabilized markets and reduced fears of a full-blown trade war. ECB faces pressure on rate policy. The European Central Bank is expected to maintain easing policies as global trade tensions shift and inflation remains uneven. Bank of Japan holds rate at 0.5%, hints at future hike. The BOJ maintained its 0.5% interest rate but upgraded its core inflation forecast to 2.7%, signaling possible earlier tightening. Yen firms after BOJ move. Asia markets mixed. The yen rose 0.6% post BOJ announcement. Asian markets saw mixed trends boosted by US tech earnings but weighed down by China PMI. Japan's M&A culture criticized after failed mega deals. Analysts highlighted Japan's weak deal-making environment, referencing failed $46 billion deals like that for Seven and I Holdings. UK's St. James Place wealth manager doubles inflows. St. James Place saw net inflows double to £3.8 billion in the first half of 2025, driven by rising demand for financial advice and renewed foreign investor interest. Managed assets reached £198.5 billion. Underlying cash profit rose 17%. Bank of England positioned for rate cut amid policy split. The Bank of England is expected to cut interest rate from 4.25% to 4% in the coming week. However, the Monetary Policy Committee remains divided, with some pushing for larger cuts, others advocating caution amid persistent inflation. Anglo-American reports $1.9 billion loss restructures. Mining giant Anglo-American announced a $1.9 billion loss in H1 2025, slashed its dividend from $0.42 to $0.07 per share, and continued restructuring, spinning off non-core units like De Beers while refocusing on copper and iron ore. Canada to recognize Palestinian state at UN General Assembly. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada's intention to recognize the state of Palestine in September at the UN General Assembly, allying with the UK and France. Recognition is conditional on Palestinian Authority reforms and elections excluding Hamas. Trump threatens trade deal as Canada supports Palestine. President Trump stated that Canada's move supporting Palestinian statehood makes a US-Canada trade deal very hard and threatened a 35% tariff if no agreement is reached by August 1st. Negotiations remain in an intense phase. TSX futures rise on commodity prices amid trade uncertainty. Canadian S&P TSX futures rose 0.5% on July 31st as gold and oil prices climbed. Markets are bracing for trade deals with the US ahead of the looming tariff deadline. Meanwhile, companies like George Weston topped revenue forecasts and announced a stock split. Canada's Brookfield to acquire US pension provider Just Group. Brookfield Wealth Solutions agreed to buy UK's Just Group for £2.4 billion, paying a 75% premium. Shares surged 69% to their highest since March 2014. The deal signals expanded Canadian investment into the UK pension market. Regional airdrops begin in Gaza. Egypt, Jordan, and the UAE carried out coordinated airdrop missions delivering approximately 16 tons of food and baby formula across Gaza to reach isolated communities amidst famine conditions. Surge in UAE non-oil trade. The UAE's non-oil foreign trade exceeded AED 1.7 trillion in the first half of 2025, a 24% year-on-year gain, with non-oil exports contributing a record 21.4% share. Sharjah government HR reform rollout. Significant HR policy reforms in Sharjah state came into effect, including extended probation for new hires, job prioritization for Emirates, standardized titles across agencies, inclusion initiatives, and internal oversight committees. UAE tops global hiring sentiment for Q3. A new report identified the UAE as a global leader in hiring outlook for Q3 2025, with over half of companies actively recruiting, underpinned by its economic diversification, infrastructure project pipeline, and investor support. Bot enters UAE market. India's homegrown audio brand Bot officially launched in the UAE, marking its first strategic entry into the Gulf market with a localization strategy tailored to tech-savvy consumers. Dubai hedge fund sector expands 72%. The number of hedge funds in the Dubai International Financial Center rose from 50 to 85 over the past year, a 72% growth, as leading global investment firms relocate and expand operations in Dubai. UAE introduces Green Visa Residency Scheme. The UAE's new Green Visa allows skilled professionals, freelancers, entrepreneurs, and investors to live and work without traditional company sponsorship, offering 5-year residency, easier family sponsorship, and longer grace periods. UAE expands defense cooperation with India. India and the UAE agreed to deepen defense ties, including maritime security collaboration, joint defense manufacturing, and enhanced military training exchanges, part of border strategic alignment. Rupee slides near record low amid US tariff threat. The Indian rupee fell to around 87.74 per USD, approaching its all-time low after the US announced a sweeping 25% tariff on Indian exports. Traders and analysts anticipate intervention by the Reserve Bank of India to stabilize the currency amid mounting market volatility. Stock markets react sharply to tariff news. India's BSE Sensex and Nifty 50 indices opened sharply lower, down about 0.7% and 0.66% respectively, as investor sentiment soured amid escalating trade tensions. Export-related sectors like pharmaceuticals and textiles are viewed as most vulnerable. Opposition criticizes Modi government over trade fallout. Indian opposition parties condemned Prime Minister Modi's government for diplomatic mismanagement following the tariff announcement, warning it threatens manufacturing growth, GDP targets, and foreign investor confidence. They called for a parliamentary debate on the crisis. Tata Motors announces $4.5 billion acquisition of Iveco. Tata Motors agreed to acquire Iveco's truck and bus businesses in an all-cash deal, the largest since acquiring JLR, aiming to expand global commercial vehicle revenue and leverage Iveco's technology, especially in the EV space. Supreme Court to re-examine JSW Steel Bhushan deal. India's top court has decided to revisit its earlier decision nullifying JSW Steel's $2.3 billion takeover of Bhushan Power and Steel. The earlier order sparked liquidation proceedings, now paused to allow a fresh hearing. Return of sacred Piprahad Buddhist gems after 127 years. Over 300 ancient gem artifacts linked to the historical Buddha were brought back to India after 127 years following negotiations and legal actions. The collection is set for public display and has drawn praise from Prime Minister Modi. Gold demand expected to hit 5-year low. The World Gold Council warns that Indian gold consumption in 2025 will hit its lowest level since 2020 as soaring prices suppress jewelry demand. Investment interest in gold ETFs, however, is rising. RBI declines to bring back fixed rate liquidity windows. Despite calls from banks for fixed rate repo operations to manage strain, the RBI has ruled out reviving such facilities, choosing to retain variable rate auctions for liquidity management. Thrissur tragedy. Pregnant woman commits suicide after alleged domestic abuse. A pregnant woman in Thrissur allegedly suffering abuse from her husband and mother-in-law took her life, sending a final message to her mother. Authorities have initiated an investigation and society has expressed shock and grief. England win toss up to bowl in fifth test. England won the toss at the Oval and chose to bowl under overcast skies on a green pitch in the decisive fifth test as they aim to seal the series and leave India needing a win to level at 2-4-2. India make multiple changes ahead of series finale. India rested key players including Jasprit Bumrah and Rishabh Pant, bringing in Dhruva Jurel behind the stumps. Captain Shubman Gill acknowledged the toss loss but stayed optimistic about setting a strong batting total. Gambir groundsman confrontation sparks. Gambir groundsman confrontation sparks. Blacklash head coach Gautam Gambhir clashed publicly with Oval groundsman over pitch access, with tension soaring when he admonished, "You don't tell us what to do." The incident drew criticism from cricket commentators and crew alike. Dale Steyn backs Mohammad Siraj to deliver. With Bumrah sidelined, cricket legend Dale Steyn backed India fast bowler Mohammad Siraj to step up and potentially record a 5-wicket haul in the pivotal match. BCCI's Let's Go motivational video released. Ahead of the final test match, BCCI released an inspirational video featuring Coach Gambhir and team training footage rallying morale with the message "Let's go" as India push to level the series. That's all for tonight. Thank you for watching. We will be back with more news tomorrow. Good night.